Hi guys, and welcome to the Kontakt Script Programmer. Today we're going to be talking about 2.4, the on initialization. Initialization is going to happen whenever the script is successfully applied, loaded, changed, restarted. Happens all the time. Well, happens whenever the instrument is first loaded up, whenever you change snapshots, things like that. So it's executed when you click apply, when you load a preset or an instrument, when you restart the audio engine, or when you load a snapshot. Okay, so it's something that you generally want to use to throw up all your UI, to create anything, to load any files, so that the threads don't get lost or confused, and so that you have everything there for when the user first opens the program. Okay, so the example we're going to build today is going to move around some of our sync and time functions using a couple of different buttons and a couple of different variables. So it's pretty big. It's going to be the biggest one we've made so far, and that's good. That's exciting. So first up, let's open up Logic and have a look. You see I've got 2.3 still open here, so we'll close that and open up a fresh new instrument. Again, we're jumping straight to the script. We will get into the rest of Kontakt at some stage. For now, I really want to focus on the script editor just because it's probably the hardest bit to learn when you're thinking about how to use this stuff really well. So we're declaring a couple of UI buttons here, being sync and time. And then we're adding some menu items to those, to that UI menu. So obviously we've got one button, which is going to put it into sync, or take it out of sync, I suppose. And then we've got a UI menu, which is going to be time in terms of quarter notes, 16th notes, crotchets, quavers. So, excuse me, just depending on what you'd like to use or how you would like to use it if you're following the 16th system or the semi-quaver system, whatever you want to use in that regard. So adding a couple of items here. I just realized I missed that. There we go. And 8 notes. So we've just got 2 menu categories. So our first menu slot is going to be 16th because that's 0. It's a 0 based or base 10 counting system. And add menu item, second menu item is going to be 18ths. We could keep going with this if we wanted to. For now, I'm just going to leave it there just because that's what that's where the example leaves it. And hey, if the example isn't broken, then I shouldn't try and break it. Okay, so next up we're going to run off onto the sync settings to try and hide the sync functions. So we're going to set it to 0, and then we're just writing a little comment. These curly braces let us write comments, and again, I'm just copying this directly from the Kontakt menu or the Kontakt book and then describing it as I go. So feel free to skip me writing this out if you don't want to do that, although as I said, I really think it's a good idea. Specifically things like this movement function, Kontakt can either work in a grid or in pixels. So the best way to start using it is with a grid, and you should only really jump to pixels when you really understand what's happening with it. Okay, now this make persistent, let's jump into make persistent in a moment, because it's again a really important function. So let's look up make persistent. It's the same as this make instrument persistent, so we retain the value of a variable only with the instrument. So if we were to change snapshots or variables, this will prevent it from snapshots or instruments, it will prevent it from being changed. So if we wanted to use something that we wanted to be persistent across multiple presets, we would use make persistent, because we would retain the value of a variable only saved with the instrument, not with snapshots. It can be used to prevent UI elements from being changed when loading snapshots. Okay, so That's what make persistent does. We then can read persistent variable. So again, this is one of those fail safes of keeping it really, really persistent. And if sync equals 1, then we move the control time to 2 different spots. Well, to the X 2 across and the Y 1 up. And we move control, else move control. Otherwise, we're moving the time back to the spot. So we're actually going to be moving some variables around graphically instead of just with variables. From there, we end the initialization phase, and then we move on to using our UI control variables, so sync and time, to have a bit of a play. Okay, now let's just jump down. If sync equals 1, we're moving control. Just going to give myself a little bit more space here. Time to 1. So again, else move control time 0, 0, and if and on. Have we made any mistakes so far? No. We have our sync button. Okay, and this will finally explain what the hell this stuff meant. Okay, so if we use our sync button, so if we're setting our sync button to 1 in order, as in pushing our sync button down, so our sync button's in 0 right now, we push it, it turns into 1, which moves our control from not on the screen, 0, 0, to 2, 1. Okay, so that's 2 across, 1 down. So sync is at 1, 1 right now. Right, so sync is at 1, 1, so it's in the first spot. Okay, first spot, 1 across, 1 down. The drop down is 2 across, 1 down. If I set sync back to 0, which is turning the button off, we remove it altogether. We're not actually getting rid of the variable. The variable still exists. It's just not available for us to be accessed. Okay. So the callback now, changing this setup so that we use the persistent variables instead. So this is jumping to the next part. Let's go back to where we were. 2.4. So changing the whole script now to initialize callback with persistent variables. Okay, just to change it so that if we it will actually work exactly the same, but it will save across different different snapshots. Okay, so let's write this out again. Again, we're just going to keep drilling this syntax as much as possible. So I'm just going to put the whole thing in brackets. So I'm just commenting out this whole script. I just need to find all of the different areas where there are comments, which it seems to be having a bit of a conniption when I do that. There we go. So on initialization, we declare a UI button. We're still keeping this exactly the same. So that button has a 0 or a 1. And we're moving it to 1, 1. And we are making it persistent. Okay, so that it does not change when we change snapshots. I'm going to give myself a bit more space and declare UI menu, which is still time. Again, have to have that $sign there, otherwise it doesn't work. I don't actually need this brackets at all, I don't think. Add menu item time, what was it, 16ths, and 0, and add menu item. Oops, menu item. Look at that, my disk is always full. No surprises there. It's pretty much always full. Okay, so that's just moving it, so it's the second item. Again, let's just for kicks, let's add a third one. I don't know about kicks. No, quaver notes. There we go. So let's do that. And then let's move it so it's off the page. 0, 0. And let's make it persistent. Time and on. Okay, now function show menu is our new way of reading this, and it means that we are looking at sync equals 1, move control time to 1. Okay, so we're moving that. I should actually space that out a bit. There we go. Else move control to 0, 0. So again, this is whenever we show the menu, we move the time out so we can see it. Otherwise, we hide the menu and it goes away. Okay. From there, we end if and end function, because we need to end if because we have an if opening up here. So then we end if. Okay, on persistence changed, we then call show menu. Okay, so when we start the patch and we change the persistence, when we're making it persistent, we're going to show the menu. And then the other flip side of this is on the UI control. If we use UI control, then we're going to call show menu as well. And on. Okay, and then we're just going to write a little comment for ourselves here. The same script functionality, now with persistence changed callback as well. Okay, so let's see how we go. Call show menu. Okay, what did we do wrong? Let's find out together. End on expected. Well, there is an end on. So what I've done here shouldn't have that underscore. Okay, now we have the same functionality. We also have that fourths. And if we save or change scripts, we're going to reset. Okay, so we're not going to reset rather. Right, so we're not going to go back that way. Okay, so if I were to save this instrument, so I'll open it and we'll set it to fourths. I'll save it as my 2.4. Okay, now let's open it up again. So let's load recent 2.4 and you'll see it already is there. So it's already synced and it's already in quarter notes. This is really handy for if you want a specific type of behavior to happen every time you open the patch. Okay, so something turns on or the colors on the keyboard change or something like that. So we should be using make persistent, and we should be using it on initialization. So the second part of this is probably the better way to use it. So this lower way here of declaring buttons, moving them around, making them persistent so that we read the status and then immediately operate on that. Okay, thanks for joining us, and I guess I'll see you in 2.5.